Accutron Watches present. From New York City, this is the Accutron Show, a time travel through American culture with your hosts, Bill McCuddy, Scott Alexander, and David Graver. Visit AccutronWatch.com and discover the brand that has made American history with an all-new proprietary next-generation electrostatic energy movement. Accutron. It's not a timepiece, it's a conversation piece.
It wasn't just, okay, I love fashion, but also because of representation. Like, I realized that there were not really many Asian guys in media in general.
The person you heard at the top of the show was today's guest, Leo Chan. He's a fashion and travel influencer. This guy gets to go everywhere, just like this guy, and it annoys me. He's got a blog called Levitate Style, but first up, it's me, Bill McCuddy, along with these two, Scott Alexander, who's a culture editor, and this guy, David Graver, who's from Cool Hunting, and gets to go on just about as many free junkets as the man we're going to meet in just a moment. All of that and more on this episode of The Accutron Show.
This podcast is presented by Accutron Watches. Visit our website, accutronwatch.com, and discover our iconic Space View 2020 collection, recreating the stunning visual impact of the original open dial design combined with an all-new electrostatic energy movement. Time just changed again. The Accutron Space View 2020.
David, Scott, isn't everybody an influencer these days? Some people
I'm
get
influencing
paid for
you
it.
right now,
Yes,
Bill.
you are.
Look into my eyes.
That's why I'm going to look at David.
I understand what you're trying to say. And indeed, you could influence my spending habits. But there is a type of internet personality that has influence over many, that has
Now,
followers.
what is
followers.
internet?
And do too many people have this kind of influence? Are there too many out there? That's one of the things we're going to ask Leo Chan.
Well, the thing about the internet, it's self-healing. Are there too many? Of course there's too many. And that's why there's this Darwinian sort of constant, turnover of these things. And the fact that there are too many is its strength. That's why it keeps...
You mean the platforms themselves?
Yeah,
change up
there's
all
always
the
new
time.
platforms, there's always new influencers, there's always new people. It's this novelty engine that really just is sort of remarkable.
And a consistent struggle to stay relevant across all of those new platforms.
And too many is the kind of salient feature of it, actually.
I like Betty White. She says, I'm on the Twitter.
That's right.
She's almost 100, and she's on the Twitter.
And she's
You tweet.
I do tweet.
I tweet.
Okay.
I don't tweet.
Yeah?
No.
Now, what do you do? What do you do,
I'm often
Scott?
all social media.
Nothing.
I went on a social media fast 2 years ago, and I never went back.
Were you ever on Facebook?
Yes.
And how'd that
I was
go?
on Facebook, I was on Twitter, I was on Instagram. I have my name on all these services, but I don't. I got my life back. I got my brain back. I started reading books again. It was weird.
Leo will be very, very frightened by you.
I still look at it. I still will look at some of the content, but I don't post. I found that I did not see myself having a career where I was able to jump up above the line and get paid to do this. And if I wasn't going to get paid for that, I got other people who'll pay me to make content.
Where do you get your news? What do you look at when you look at your
Times.
phone? New York Times.
New York Mag,
You get a real New York
The
Times?
New Yorker.
The real
Do you
one?
sense a theme here?
I sense a theme.
Do you get a real New York Times delivered to the front porch?
No, but I do get the Sunday Times.
Actually, I did that for a long time.
Sunday
a nice
Times.
touch.
I like to actually physically write the Sunday Times crossword.
I have a theory that the Times will go all digital except for the Sunday edition, which will come in a box with like gloves or something.
is
It's
a great
going to be
idea.
well.
I like to go to the park with the Sunday Times and spend several hours just letting my brain ooze out its ears.
Well,
from
you're
the
probably
previous week.
not a good candidate for an influencer on the internet.
Exactly.
So David, who spends all your time being influenced or listening to
influencing.
pitches, or influencing at Cool Hunting, what makes Leo good? What is he doing correctly?
Remarkably, I met Leo on a press trip. We were the guest of Stella Artois to Sundance.
Wish
the
I
Sundance
could act
Film Festival.
surprised.
And we were at a dinner, and he and his girlfriend invited me back to their room because Stella had given us crates of beer. And we got there, and then they started taking photos, and I saw true connection to product and the creation of something really organic, natural, and beautiful. A lot of social media looks so fake, and they were just so into what they were doing.
I don't know about
really
organic and beautiful.
Way. It was.
So
you can only
how much of their
comparatively.
How much of their life are they willing to expose on this?
I imagine that they keep personal things personal. I follow both of them on social media, and I see what they want me to see, and that's actually how all social media
Unless
is.
you're in their hotel room with a case of beer.
With a case of beer.
It's true.
We don't want to hear the ending of that story. There's one of the things I'll ask too is about whether he has a time frame that is it a 9 to 5 kind of job for him that he can turn off at the end of the day? I would think not. I would think that it would become extremely seductive. Like we've talked about the movie The Social Dilemma before. This is a filmmaker who, it's on HBO. If you haven't seen it, you should. A filmmaker who actually recruited or cast 3 people to go out and become internet stars, influencers, bloggers. And 2 of the people, spoiler alert, don't really love it. They become kind of famous. One person really digs it. The other 2 kind of see the monster they've created.
I have a hard time enough separating my professional life from my personal life, making sure that I'm getting enough downtime, making sure that I am, checking out of work, having dinner with my family, like, going offline, essentially. The idea that your personal social life would be bound up with your work, to me, is my own.
If you were going to buy a suit, and I'm guessing it would be one of the first in a long time, would you go on any kind of social media and look at somebody that's wearing one and go, yes, that's
Probably
the one I want?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's where
I
Leo
do
comes
know
in.
where the vibe is, and it's not in the New York Times.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Leo is part of this new way of communicating style and travel, but he also represents the diversification of men's style voices. It's always been the fashion Bible books, and now we can go to Instagram and we can be inspired and find aspirational products from a diverse range of voices. And it's so powerful, and it's really exciting to be a part of this right now.
Before we bring him into the conversation, how is Levitate different or the same as Cool Hunting?
Cool Hunting is an 18-year-old lifestyle and design website. So we're the internet first. We sort of grew out of being a blog, but we're not a blog because many people write for us. It's not one singular voice. What Leo is doing is social media first, and Instagram is his primary platform, though I would love to talk to him about TikTok because I've been looking at his numbers, and he's growing rapidly there, but that's a completely different style of creation.
But it's a personal brand, right?
Yes.
At the end of the day, whereas Cool Hunting is a larger collective.
Yes.
Still an influencer, still telling people what is cool and worth hunting. But the point you make about having a sort of an editorial staff is different than him just, here's me, I go out, this is my life. But how much of Leo Chan is he showing us? We're going to find out when the Accutron show continues after this.
This podcast is presented by Accutron Watches. Visit our website, accutronwatch.com, and discover our Accutron DNA collection. Reimagined for a new generation, the Accutron DNA combines breakthrough technology, precise engineering, and modern aesthetics to achieve a new level of technical excellence. The Accutron DNA, the new face of time for those who blaze new trails.
Leo, we were having this debate before you came in about how I think everyone's an influencer, just some people get paid to do it. And for you, when did all this start and when did you know you were good at it?
Well, let's see. This was definitely been a crazy journey the past 5, 6, 7 years now. Before this, I actually started working in finance first. But this is when you kind of noticed where social media was growing and you saw how Instagram and blogs were becoming such a thing. But that's when I kind of noticed that like there was definitely a lot of interest on social media about fashion, travel, lifestyle. And I kind of looked at that space with my girlfriend and we thought, okay, like this is interesting. This is something that we could jump into because I've always had a passion and hobby in fashion, in traveling. Like we were taking photos everywhere we were traveling. It was just more like a fun hobby, but we noticed this change and there was a way to turn this into a side hustle, turn it into a career.
So it grew out of your personal life and your regular personal brand.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that was kind of, these were all like my personal hobbies at first, even though I was working in a 9-to-5 corporate job.
Right.
So in a way, it was like an easy transition because it wasn't something completely new.
And there was a moment where you took it on full time, where you gave up this past life and you became an internet personality.
Yeah. So I was working at Morgan Stanley and then Barclays before this.
So if you had a good job in finance, maybe it might have been different.
Not too bad. Good holidays, good pay, comfortable.
You thought about buying Instagram.
So we had, this was already like, we were doing this for like a year as a side hustle, literally after work, after our jobs, change our outfit real quick, go on networking events to meet with other PR, marketing person, meeting with other bloggers, other influencers, kind of building out this whole other career, this industry, right? And then we were starting to get some like sponsored projects there and there, a few like once a month, which was like, okay, maybe this is a possible thing to quit my job and have this freedom, right? Like have this creativity. But then we had this opportunity that came about. We got to work with this brand and travel the world for 5 months on a world cruise. And when that came along and we did rounds of interviews and they were like, yes, you guys are the right person. You guys are the travel ambassador for this brand. I was like, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity that I can't pass up. I can always come back to Manhattan, to New York City to find another finance job. So with this opportunity, we got to visit 50 cities in 26 countries in 5 months.
And that was for?
That was for Plymouth Gin. So
Wow.
it was with a gin brand too. So
It's like a 5-month bender. You're like on the lost weekend that lasted 6 months. And was that the first paid gig? Like paid, but who paid you? Who was the first person to pay you, and what was it for, and how much?
Let's see. The first few brands that paid us were really small brands. These were brands that also was just growing their following on Instagram. One of the first brands were Golden Rush. So they make a lot of great menswear shoes. They're, I think, in Nordstrom. And so that was one of the brands in the beginning where I think I first saw them from like a trade show, made that connection in person and kind of built that relationship together. And they also really loved that my Instagram featured a mix of fashion and travel. It wasn't just fashion.
So how many followers, just so people listening understand?
I can answer for you.
So first time you got paid, how many people were following you? David knows.
Well, that at the time...
Am I the only one who doesn't know this?
That at the time, I would think I was only around 20 to 30,000. But again, this is 6 years ago. So times have changed a lot quickly. So I think nowadays there's a lot of micro influencers that can easily make money with a smaller following. But back then, you have to understand brands were also slowly adapting to this new way of advertising. So for them, working with an influencer at 30,000 at the time was kind of a big deal as well.
So I checked your statistics this morning and you have 118,000 Instagram followers.
Yeah.
But here's another one that I found very interesting. You have 768,000 likes on TikTok.
Oh, that's right.
That is a remarkable
All from
statistic.
a guy named Dave. Who's that? Who is Dave?
I'm curious. I mean, first of all, do you identify as an influencer? And if so, what is an influencer?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely do. I mean, now I've been full-time as an influencer for over 5 years now. And I think part of the dilemma with the word influencer is that there's a lot of bad rep. There's a lot of bad news, bad reputation for influencers. Because I think when you mention influencer, people think the Kardashians, the bikini girls on Instagram, and they think, oh yeah, you're one of those people who just take a nice little photo and post it and done. But there's a lot of business, a lot of structure behind the work. And this is why a lot of brands now spend so much of their budget on influencer marketing. So I tell people I'm an influencer in the fashion and travel space. And for me, an influencer, for me as an influencer in the beginning is you got to have influence. You have to have an audience. I think that is above all else. You can have amazing content, but at the end of the day, you need to have an audience.
How often are you producing content?
I produce content almost regularly every week. But a lot of it, if I'm traveling, that is when we're just out and capturing content all the time. So now we've learned over the years a really good work-life balance where when we're home in New York City, we might only shoot content a few times a week versus every day in the past.
And some of that's like studio posed, or some of that's like, so if it's a spa thing, maybe your head's in a pool of like a kiddie pool and there's rose like leaves around you, or not. I mean,
yes and no. It depends on the business. It depends on the location, the attraction we're trying to provide the value with. Like if it's a travel destinations, then we'll focus more on that kind of photo. If it's a fashion post, it's more of a fashion outfit. We don't take as many photos in studios anymore because I think people relate to more real life lifestyle photos, because studio photos, you can look at any catalog, any brand, and you can see that.
That's the whole point of an influencer, right?
Exactly.
It feels more like the real world.
Right.
I'm curious, like you got in 2013, sort of the leading edge, or 2014, in the leading edge of this stuff of brands coming in, and it's moving so fast, as you mentioned, like, and there's no rules really, because the rules are being written as you go. You're writing the rules, right? Along with these. Go ahead.
No, I totally
Leo's
agree.
laws.
I think it's changed so much from the past 5-6 years that there are basic rules now with how brands work with influencers, what the rates are, what standard sponsorship collaboration looks like. It's usually a standard like Instagram post, stories, swipe up, link in bio. These are kind of like the usual jargon. But I think where it's going, you don't know, because now we have TikTok and we have Reels, and Instagram's constantly pushing because they're very smartly enough to be competitive. They see another social media platform taking over, they're going to add that feature. And now brands are wanting more video content. So those are the kind of new rules where, you know, it's up to what the brand wants, what they want to try out in the future.
But it seems like you have to constantly kind of be watching the market and seeing what's coming around the curve.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. I think that's where a good influencer should constantly be watching, because at the end of the day, what is social media, right? It is people's attention. People go on there to spend their time, their attention on there, right? And if people all of a sudden are getting bored of photos because there's so much photos and they're more interested in videos now, then you need to pay attention to what is working and what's not working anymore. So as an influencer, you also need to push yourself to create better photos. Think about photos on Instagram 6 years ago. It was just iPhone photo with heavy filter, with your food on the table, right? But now it's changing to, some of these photos look like magazine shoots.
Yeah.
And so
wait, I can't do the food on the table anymore.
might not get as many followers these days.
All right.
Bill's an
but
old school Instagram bikini
explain.
girl, so.
So the quality of
Mac
the content,
and cheese looked really good. All right, so I'm just saying.
So the quality of content has really elevated in the past 5-6 years. And I think it's also with people's demand, people's appetite for content, and of course, more and more people getting better at using a camera, right? So now it's videos. And now you have to, how can you shoot a 15-second ad-like video for a regular influencer? So it's getting more and more intricate, but it's also very intriguing where that can take influencers.
Do you think that over purification of the image, or this quest for perfection on Instagram, has led people to TikTok, where you can be a little sloppier, or Snapchat, which doesn't really, I don't think has the same sort of relevance, but let people just be free instead of being picture perfect?
I totally agree with that. I think that was the huge appeal with TikTok in the very beginning, is that, you know, for me, if you look on my Instagram, it's like, you know, trying to pose perfectly to make sure the clothes look right and make sure the lighting is right and the location is great. So when you look at the photo, you're like, boom, like, that's great. But then you look on TikTok, it's like, all right, here's me and my girlfriend doing a silly dance in the same outfit, just having fun, just enjoying the vacation, just having these little moments where we could be ourselves, or be in the silly side of yourself that you never show to the public. Because as an influencer, you're also sharing a lot.
So do you feel like your influence, you building influence on TikTok in one way helps you back on Instagram? Like, do these mutually kind of benefit each other?
I think, and this is where it's crazy how TikTok has grown so much. I think in the beginning, a year and a half ago, before the pandemic or during the pandemic, TikTok was more, you grow your TikTok so you can direct your audience to Instagram. But now TikTok's become so big that the audience stays on TikTok. And it's all about where the audience stays. But you have an advantage where if you create content for TikTok, you can also repurpose that content for Instagram, for YouTube, because it is video. So it's constantly changing. So that's why even as an influencer, your strategy could change month to month.
And how does that affect how you get approached by big corporations? Do they say, we think we want this on Instagram, we think we want that on TikTok, and does anybody tweet anymore? And so how do you advise them?
Well, that's really ultimately up to the brand and what they want. For example, if a brand want to gear towards more Gen Z, the younger crowd, they're definitely on TikTok first. And then if they see that works on TikTok, they might do more on Instagram. So it depends on the brand, right? If you have a watch brand who has no business being on TikTok, they're going to focus on Instagram, because I think there's more mature audience on Instagram. They prefer detailed photos of the watch, whereas a fast, quick video might not be able to convey that message. So it depends on the brand and the audience they're trying to reach, and then which method works best for them. So I think fast fashion brands like H&M, Zara, Express, they're exploring more options with both TikTok and Instagram, whereas obviously more of a old school, history-filled watch brand are going to focus their attention on Instagram.
As an editor who began in print, do you think the influencer today has taken the place of the editor, the clout of the editor 20 years ago, 25 years ago?
Well, I think this is where me, as an influencer, before influencer, I was just a normal dude, right? Just a normal guy. I worked in finance. I was a customer first. So me growing up, I read GQ magazine. And for me, reading GQ magazine, that was kind of where I learned how to dress. After a while, I was kind of losing the appeal when half the magazines out there are advertisements or it's just designer brands I can never afford, right? So I think this is why influencers feel so much more real, because they're wearing clothes from every brand. It could be, you can find influencer of all different size, different style, different brands that they, like to associate with. So you can find influencer who's all about budget, and you have influencer who's all about luxury, and you can find influencer who is Asian, who's different race, or they live in different parts of the country that you can really relate to. So instead of just one magazine, one print that's supposed to be the be-all, end-all fashion source, now you can really find individuals that you can relate to and you can connect with.
Leo Chan is an influencer, and he's influencing us today on the Accutron show. When we come back, I'm going to tell him that I have 40 Facebook followers. And so I think he's going to be pretty impressed with that. We're also going to learn about some of the other projects. And has he ever turned anything down? When the Accutron show comes back after this.
This podcast is presented by Accutron Watches. Visit our website, accutronwatch.com, and discover our legacy collection, reviving some of the most memorable Accutron watches from the 60s and 70s. The legacy collection combines timeless design with the technical excellence of Swiss watchmaking, each limited to 600 individually numbered pieces. The Accutron Legacy Collection, inspired by the past, built for the future.
Leo, did that commercial influence you at all? Do you now want to wear an Accutron more than anything? Well, actually, you've got one on. I should say that. Thanks for being our guest today. Leo Chan is here. He's talking about everyone who can influence everyone in the world of social media. And you were talking a little bit about the world tour you took. I want to hear about some of the other great things you've done, like the top 2 or 3. And then have you ever turned anything down? Has anyone come to you and said, let's do this, and you were like, that's not my brand?
Yeah, there's definitely a few that comes to mind right away. So I think, again, with an influencer, you want to be true to your audience. And so definitely one of the brands that I've turned down are Crocs. Because it's just not my style, somebody else's style. But I just know if I take that deal, I'm doing it for the paycheck. And people can see that right away when I do that.
When they
post.
see you in Crocs, they're going to go, wait a second.
Yeah.
Is this the guy?
Crocs are in style.
I have to say that I did go to a Crocs runway show in Times Square in, I think, 2015. Bella Thorne was the talent.
I would have gone to
I don't want to talk about that ever again.
Done.
So, and Anything life-threatening, like they wanted you to go skydiving or something like that? You just said
no, nothing crazy like that.
rock climbing or mountain.
No, nothing crazy like
5
that.
months on a gin cruise was about as life-threatening as...
Yeah, I mean, there's other brands I've turned down. There was one like tobacco smoking related company where I don't smoke and I don't want to personally promote smoking. I don't condone someone else doing it, but it's not my thing, so I didn't want to work with them, even though they had a big budget. And then there was also a tourism board with a country where we looked at their history and we looked at, okay, they're against LGBT rights. So what does that say if I go there and promote this country, but guess what the government is doing?
Exactly what they want.
And it's just like, no, like I understand why you have money for this, but like I can't do
Right,
that.
that's why they're cutting the check, because they've got
Exactly.
something to cover up. But yeah, you got to be careful. You got to do your research.
Yeah.
What motivates you? Actually, what brought you into this?
Yeah, we can definitely go back a little bit. So before I even, sometimes I introduce myself as an influencer, I identify as an immigrant first. I was born and raised in Hong Kong. I moved to New York City when I was 10 years old with my family. And growing up in New York City, learning a new language, trying to fit in, I kind of found like sports and fashion as my way in. Before you meet someone, before you talk to someone, what do you notice first? You notice what they're wearing. And sometimes you kind of see what they're wearing, especially when you're a kid in high school, you got to dress like the cool kids to got to fit in. So that was kind of like my way in learning what ticks in the American society. And so I kind of learned, okay, you got to dress to impress. You got to speak the same language with the people that are in the same room, right? And so, and that was kind of like how I got into fashion at first, really better myself, dress as the best version of myself to impress, make that great first impression, because that's what can change people's perception, especially on Asian immigrants. And then I studied accounting. I went to finance to make my parents proud. I was the first to go to college, and hence that's why I went into finance. So that's what really got me started in that journey.
Did that make it hard to leave finance then? Because was there some pressure on you to
How'd the
stay?
parents feel about that?
I think at first they thought I was doing Levitate Style, the side hustle thing, as a fun project, and I had to explain to them time and time again, this is making money, this is what's happening.
And you're inspiring people.
Oh yeah, and I was actually in GQ magazine, and I showed it to my parents, and they're like, "Oh, what are you, a model now?" And I was like, "I mean, I thought you'd be very proud of this."
I'd be happy.
And then they pick up the next issue of GQ and they're like, "You're not in it this month. What happened?" Parents just don't understand.
So I think they understood that, like, even with my schooling and with my finance career, I was constantly pushing myself to kind of climb the ladder. And of course, I pushing myself for these opportunities with social media, with Levitate Style. So when I told them about the trip, they're like, well, you can't turn that down. Like, how can you turn that down, right? And so
they came along.
After everything I've shown them, all these proof and all these like magazines, right? Like after all these collaborations, they're like, okay, do what's best for you. They kind of get it. And now they've kind of seen like the lifestyle and the brands that I get to work with. And I've been able to include them in my collaboration sometimes when it's like Father's Day, Mother's Day. So it's been really cool.
Do you think social media changed during the course of the pandemic, specifically with regard to men's style and the way men dress now?
Oh, 100%. I think if I did a poll right now, if you ask somebody, hey, are you going to wear a suit today? It could be 50-50 or even less. I just think like with the change in the whole culture, right? Like now you're working from home. Well, I mean, chances are you're not putting on a suit, maybe just for
Pants optional.
yeah, for that 1 hour Zoom call, maybe. Yeah. And so I think like that has changed a lot. And as an influencer too, before the pandemic, before my early years with Levitate Style, it was mostly suits, mostly menswear, because that is what I was wearing to work. That is what I was really interested at first. But I'm also interested in the NBA, in basketball, in that kind of pop culture style. So over the years, I'm starting to mix in more casual style and suits so that there's something for everyone. Because not everyone wears suits every day. And I have friends personally that's like, I prefer the looks you put on with the hoodie and the coat. And I was like, okay. So I got to learn. You have to be relatable at the end of the day. You're providing value for your audience. And so I'm trying to provide both so everyone can have options.
And what about the clientele during the pandemic? I mean, how did that change up?
Yeah, so initially that first month, literally like the emails just when, all right, stop all collaborations. Like we don't know what's going on. We're putting a pause on everything. So the first 2-3 months, even with the collaborations that we signed on, was just, okay, we got to pause the budget, things are changing. Thankfully, one of my favorite brand partners, one of the longest partners was Express. And they kind of just kept the ball rolling. They were really smart. The marketing team is amazing. They just say, hey, if people are working from home, let's shoot the content at home. Shoot it like you would on a couch. Shoot it like you would working from home. And like they did not drop the ball. They did not pause. They understand that people are on social media more, if anything. And they just kept it going. If anything, we've doubled like our collaborations because they love all the different content we were able to provide.
As we come out of the pandemic, I'm super interested in, do you see any differences in the way people are approaching fashion or style as they're sort of re-emerging into the world?
It's definitely a mixed bag right now. I think a lot of people are coming out. They still want to be very comfortable. So you still got all the sweatpants and the jogger set, but they want to make it a little bit more stylish, a little bit more well put together. But then I'm sure as the bars and the restaurants open back up, people are really dressing to the nine. So I feel like there's definitely two extremes happening right now.
Yeah, it's a weird world.
All the Fabletics I bought, I can't go out in. I can just stay at home. I mean, this is a great outlet for people of every background and ethnicity. I mean, it's the social media platform seems to welcome all. And I in that vein, I wonder if you think some people like the Kardashians you mentioned earlier, or we had the movie Social Dilemma that I made reference to a little earlier. Should some people just not be doing this?
I definitely agree with that because some people do it just for the money, just for the fame of it, but they don't realize how much hard work there is. It's not as simple. If it is really that simple, everyone would do it because it does take a lot of time to build an audience, to shoot all this content. And so what I realized from my years of meeting other people too, some people get burned out because in the beginning, they're like, oh, I'm a good looking dude, so I'm gonna take photos, the end. But like for me in the very beginning, it wasn't just, okay, I love fashion, but also because of representation. Like I realized that there were not really many Asian guys in media in general. You look at magazines, TV, movie, there was just no Asian guys. And if there were, it was like terrible negative stereotypes. Which
the bad guy, the triad, the gang.
Or the geek and the nerdy. Or the guy from... what's the casino movie?
The Hangover.
The Hangover. Yep. The Hangover. So like that's the kind of negative stereotypes that as Asian guy we're trying to change. And so with my content, I figure, okay, at the very least, maybe if someone Google search fashion or they go to Pinterest, they look at fashion, they can find my photo. And that's one more Asian guy that can find than before. The very rare time that I see Asian guy was maybe in a J. Crew catalog. And that was really about it. And so I figure, okay, as cliche as it is, but like be the change you want to see because now you do have the opportunity with social media. And so this is why I keep pushing myself to work with bigger and better brands. I want to work with more luxury brands because we didn't see Asian guys like this before. And also the same thing. Did we see Asian guys traveling like this before? Maybe not. So that by doing so, in a way, as a guinea pig, it's like by me as an influencer, by doing this and so, that could inspire other people to do the same and enjoy and try out all these different things.
I imagine for audience development, you must feel plugged in all the time. Do you take breaks? Do you take analog moments to reset yourself?
Definitely. I think this is why, especially for us, behind the scenes, I work with my partner, my girlfriend, Alicia. And so it's not just work, but it's also like we're kind of like the team together, right? And so it's like, how do you balance work life and relationship balance and all this? And so, especially traveling, I think is the easiest way to explain. Like, I know there's certain spots I want to take photos, create content, but outside of those moments, we'll make sure we'll go to the cafe. We'll make sure we'll go to the bookstore. And then nighttime.
Without posting it, without taking a picture.
Without it. It's just to enjoy, what is her interest, what is her hobbies, right? And then nighttime, I don't really do nighttime photos. So sunset, we're done. Dinner time. Yeah.
How about that as a dad, that all of the imagery that gets put out there that then becomes aspirational for a whole younger generation? Is there a responsibility that goes with that says, you're not going to get a Bentley, but here's where there's a cafe we went to that was cool and interesting, or here's a $20 T-shirt we found amongst the $5,000 ones at Neiman Marcus. Is that even still a company?
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's like how responsible do you feel every time you push something out that somebody can see that and go, well, that's what I should be doing?
Yeah, I mean, I think there definitely needs to be a healthy check and balance with social media. I don't think everyone should just indulge in social media and take everything as is. There are these people out there who are fake gurus that rent the Bentley for the day and pretend like it's theirs. I think that's the bad side of social media. But I think the right influencer, I don't say I own this. I don't pretend like I live all this life all the time. I'm trying to be real and even with clothing, I post a balance of brands, of luxury brands that I work with, but also brands that I, lower end brands that I work with, like Express and H&M, and I wear normal clothes, that people can afford as well. I want to balance that because I understand fashion is for everyone, but the budget is not, right? So you have to be kind of sensitive to what everyone's budget is.
Being aspirational and inspirational, are you also susceptible to FOMO? Do you scroll through Instagram and think, oh, I wish I had gone there. Why am I not there right now?
Definitely. I mean, that happens all the time, and it's so easy to be like, whoa, okay, how come this brand didn't invite me? But, you got to be happy with
FOMO
what
just
you
moves
have.
to another level.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah. You're like, wait a minute. I thought I was cool, too. But
So
no,
FOMO. So FOMO. SOFO.
So, I mean, you just got to be happy with what you got, and you got to be happy with the brands you do work with. You got to be happy with the opportunities you have gotten. And you can always look at it the other way. Hey, I got to do this trip where nobody else went. So you can't be FOMO about a different trip where you're not on because you had a different opportunity. So you got to have that healthy mental check, right? Because it's so easy to compare every single thing. You got to be happy with what you got.
Hey, is brick and mortar going to go away? You mentioned H&M and Express, and I think, I don't need a store if I've got Leo out there selling for me.
Picking my wardrobe.
I can just order it online.
I think there's still a huge necessity for in-person shopping just because you want to try on things. Sometimes you make a day out of it, right? You spend a day in Soho, walking around different stores, checking out different things. You want to see some of the clothing, you might need it tomorrow before your vacation, or you need something last minute. So there's still a human need for in-person.
We talk about that on this show because it's Accutron sponsored, and we don't every episode hasn't got a little Accutron mention in it. But one of the things they have told us is that the high-end watch world is definitely a place where, at least before they buy, if they do buy it online, they go to a retailer and they want to put it on their wrist and they want to see what it looks like.
You want to touch it, you want to see it on.
Definitely. Yeah, it's one thing to read about the dimensions and how heavy it is. It's another thing to put it on, feel it, really see how it shines in the light, how it feels on you, how it ticks, right? Especially for a more investment kind of purchase, you want to be sure of what you're getting. So I 100% agree with that. And I also think brands have an opportunity to make in-person shopping a lot more interesting. I think Nike in Soho is one of the best stores because they're constantly changing their floor. They're constantly changing with the different marketing, and they have fun with it. So they might change the first floor to a cafe one day, and then next month they might change it to a whole basketball court one day. And so you can have fun with that. And by doing that, you can attract more people come in just to look at these installations and not just for shopping.
Do you think the shopping integration features on Instagram have been beneficial?
I think it's getting there. I think that's kind of what Instagram's been pushing for all these years. I think we're getting into a good place. And I think at the end of the day is the more brands sign on to do it, and the faster checkout is. And but at the end of the day, I think the more brands are on it, then users feel like, all right, this is legit, this works. Ralph Lauren's on here, Express is on here. Okay, like this works. So I think like it depends on how people shop. I still like to shop on the desktop, not on the phone yet. But I definitely see the convenience of it.
If you were designing a social media platform that was yours, what would the elements of it be? Who would you steal from, and what would you do differently than TikTok or Instagram or Twitter or Facebook or any of those?
Oh, that's a
what
tough
would be
one.
the best mixture in your opinion?
I mean, I give kudos to Instagram for half the time stealing other platforms, but they do such a great job at staying alive, right? You look at Instagram, they grew kind of out of Facebook.
They're fighting, yeah.
Yeah. And then when Snapchat was happening with stories, Instagram grew and added Instagram stories. And then when TikTok was growing, they're like, okay, we can add Reels. So I think Instagram, I mean, like if I had to build one, it would probably be similar to Instagram just because they're able to retain the audience. Like you don't have to leave this app to go to TikTok for something else. You don't have to leave this app to go to Instagram. You don't have to leave Instagram to go to Snapchat for something else. You don't have to go to YouTube for something else. We try to integrate everything here. And that's the easiest way.
Focus on the user experience.
Everyone is already
making
here.
sure the user is taken care of and has the easiest, lowest friction.
Yeah.
Being an influencer, how would you envision the next 5 years? What will an influencer look like in 5 years? What do you want an influencer to look like in 5 years?
I think we're getting to a point where there's already a huge saturation of influencers. So I think the ones that have that passion, have that drive, have been the ones staying kind of afloat. And I think going into the future, obviously with more and more influencers being open about their background, diversity, talking about social issues, I think people who started with fashion or travel, they all kind of realize they do have a platform, they have an audience, and they have the opportunity to speak out and to talk about these different issues. So I do think that that's kind of what we're kind of gearing towards more and more. And I am hoping that videos like Reels become more casual. I think we're kind of losing the casualness of social media, is becoming a little too curated, like magazines. So at the end of the day, if we're trying to relate to an audience, are we losing that, right? Like it's becoming too much. Can people just enjoy the content for what it is, just for the fashion, just for the travel destinations?
That's brilliant.
Yeah, and I think like it's constantly changing, so it's hard to envision what 5 years looks like, because last year we didn't envision 10-second videos to be the hottest thing now. Like the attention span is a little scary for me, even as a influencer myself, where when I first started, you had to have a blog and website. Now some of the Instagram posts is just as long as a blog post.
It's true.
You talk about carousel posts with 10 photos, 3 paragraphs, that's a blog post. That's a web page. And so now you have videos where it's 10 seconds. So it's like, where's the attention span going? It's a little scary. How many outfit changes? Or like how much information do you need to give in 10 seconds for it to
Well, and this
be
engine
satisfied?
where you're trying to keep someone's attention, the app is sort of trying to keep them moving through different stuff. And this is kind of like arms race almost with an attention.
Yeah, so as a creator, it's a little scary too. As a producer, I'm sure, podcast show, whatever the media is, right? Where's the attention span going to be? Is it going to be shorter? Can anybody watch a 1 minute video anymore? So that's very interesting.
Can it get short? Like how short can it get?
Yeah, so like does it have to be one punchline, in the video clip? So you kind of have to see what the audience is going to take, and you got to go with that flow, because at the end of the day, it is about the audience.
I'm going to start blipper, half-second video clips.
That's a great idea.
When you do, I'm
first.
sure Leo Chan will be on it. He's on everything else, and including the Accutron show. Leo, thank you for joining us. In terms of great content, you delivered incredibly here today, so we enjoyed having you. And please go influence people to listen to this show.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to The Accutron Show. To listen to all of our shows, visit accutronwatch.com. To learn more about the world of Accutron, follow us on Instagram at AccutronWatch and subscribe to our podcast. From New York City, until next time, Accutron time.